was tough. In victory we win. In victory we win.
Hey guys, it's your girl LaToya Renee, and you're tuning into Sister Can We Talk. This show is an empowerment show that allows us to share each other's testimonies, to uplift our faith, to believe in the impossible. You guys are tuning in for part 2 of our special guest, Pastor Teresa Burton. Yay! She is back to finish off the conclusion of her testimony. We left off, and now she's ready to share the remaining of her testimony. So let's go ahead and get it started. Last time we was talking, you was talking about your relationship and how you got pregnant. And so now you are, what happened after that?
Well, a lot of things happened after that. I started going through domestic violence with that relationship. I barely walked out of a relationship with my life. But I did. God saw fit. You know, you never know how God's going to do things. I was young. I didn't leave in that relationship till I was like 17.
Wow.
And a lot of things transpired. A lot of things I'm trying to keep in mind is, remember I stated that I got addicted to the feeling.
Yes.
So I was not faithful to nobody the whole entire time. Even though I was getting jumped on.
Yes, I was going to say that. Even though
I was slick with my stuff. Yeah. And I was running after a feeling. I was running after that thing that made me feel. So a lot of things happened, a lot of things I got into. Yes. And then I was able to escape, and I barely walked out with my life. The day I escaped is the day I almost lost my life, and the police had to come, and I didn't go back. I barely walked out with my life. But
let's talk about that.
Yeah. So this particular night, I would start working. He allowed me to work.
Okay.
Yeah, he allowed me to work, and I started working. And it was a young lady on my job, and she said, "You would know." I started confining what I was dealing with and going through. Yes. And when she told me that you're gonna know when it's time. You're going to know when your life is in jeopardy. Okay. And so this particular relationship with my child and everything, and sure enough, she was right. I knew it was something wrong. And I would not lie to you. I came home, started packing my bags, and I had to do it real quietly. I had to do it real smart because he was at work, but something told me he was going to come home, and sure enough, he came home early. But nevertheless, he came home early. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm not doing anything, nothing." And he saw my bag, and he beat me up all night long. Wow. All night. He beat me up so much and so bad that night until I peed on myself. And the next day, he said, "Go take a bath." And I go take a bath. And this is the day I was going to leave my daughter because I had to get out of there. I was so bloody from head to toe, and the blood was just running down the tub. And I said, "This is the day I'm gonna get out of here." And so I called myself climbing out the window
of the bathroom.
In the bathroom. Okay. And he caught me. Wow. He knew, and he beat me all over again. Wow. And it was at that moment I said, I still had a mindset to leave, and eventually God opened the door, and I did. Yes. I left with scars, but I did, and I was able to get my daughter. Yes. And so we did. And then next thing you know, a couple years later, I got in another domestic violence relationship. Before we talk about that,
so I hear a lot of people say that before you leave, you should have a plan.
Had no plan. A lot of times, most of the domestic violence victims, they don't have a plan to leave. Right. They just leave because you're not surrounded with resources to teach you that. Right. Now, of course, you hear more of that now. Yes. But back then, that was almost 30 years ago. Yes. So now, it's actually more than 30 years ago. Now the plans are there. So I get in a relationship, another relationship, make a long story short, domestic violence seemed to be a very thing I was prone to. And I found out later that the reason I was so prone to it because I was so prone to abuse. Yes. Abuse is abuse. Right. And these men was an authority. Right. And so I was looking for an authority figure, and unfortunate, I married and I got involved with my pain.
Wow, that's so profound.
Yeah, I got involved.
You married your pain.
I married my pain because I didn't know nothing else. Yes. And so, of course, it didn't look visual at the time, but it was. So here I am in another relationship, and barely came out of that with my life. Wow. And I have now, by this time, I have 2 children. And going through all the domestic violence. During that time also, I went schizophrenic. Well, schizophrenic runs in my family. I didn't know that. And so I would literally...
How old was you at
by this time? I am 21.
Okay.
I'm 21. And I'm going through these schizophrenic moves, and I did not quite know. I was diagnosed because they would find me on Phillips Highway or...
I was going to say, explain, because a lot of people don't talk about schizophrenia. Like, what was going through your mind?
I can't be honest with you. I can't remember a lot of stuff going through my mind. I just remember at night I would switch. At night, it always happened at night. It never happened during the daytime.
Like, switch how?
I would switch to this little girl. And I wouldn't know who I was. But there was moments I could remember feeling myself. Hiding within myself. And so the person that you see is not the person that's in.
Right.
It's who I am is actually inside, hiding. Behind this little girl who you see. I'm hiding. And so I would get up in the middle of the night, put my kids to bed. The relationship I was in at the time, he was a truck driver, so he did not know what I was dealing with. But he would go, and it wasn't every day. It was maybe 2-3 days out of the week. I would literally go through these phases, and I didn't know. And then one day, unfortunate, somebody found me, and they admitted me into the hospital.
They found you where?
They found me on Phillips Highway.
Okay.
Butt naked. Butt naked. And they did all these tests and came back, I was schizophrenic. And they called me functional schizophrenic. Because I was able to function through the day. But at night, something happened. And so the doctor says that I had I'm used putting my own terminology because all these terms that I don't remember. So somehow I had a collision with my pain. So now the present relationship I in was triggering all the trauma
pain that you had prior
to that I never dealt with. And so now I'm in this bad relationship. And it's causing all this pain. And so now I hit that wall and I would flip. And I would just...
You had a mental breakdown.
I had a mental breakdown. And I would literally get in my car with just a robe on and drive up Phillips Highway or Florida Avenue butt naked. With a wig on. And I would put contacts in my eyes. So at some point I knew what I was doing. But I wanted to run away from my reality. And I would run to that. So I went through that very for a couple of years. And then while I was in this relationship, at the end of it, because God had already told me not to marry this person or don't be in a relationship with this person, and I did. I
got you married in disobedience.
I disobeyed. I heard a voice just like I'm talking to you. Don't get in that relationship, and I did. And because I was running behind what made me feel good. Versus what was good for me. And so that was a bad relationship, and I went through a whole lot. And the day I got out, it didn't look like that was going to be my way out. But the day I got out, I thought I was going to lose my life. 2 weeks prior to this incident, the Lord had told me, and because I had a relationship with him, I just didn't obey.
I
had a relationship, I just didn't obey. But I heard his voice like I'm talking to you. And he said, go get a phone, a cordless phone. And another line and put another, because he had a business and I had one too. I'm a graphic designer, and he had a business, and so we had 2 phone lines, one for the house and one for the business. And the Lord told me go get another phone line.
Question for you. So you said you heard him, but you rarely obeyed. What made you obey him?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but I did that time, and I called the phone company, got another phone line, and then I got a cordless phone, put it in my daughter's room. He told me to put it in my daughter's room and tell her not to use it until you need it. And so did not know 2 weeks later that's going to be the phone that God's going to use to save my life.
Explain it.
So 2 weeks later it happened. He went off, and for some reason he picked me up and threw me over his head. My body fell to the floor, and literally my daughter was running down. She heard the commotion, and she ran down the stairs, and she said, "Mommy! And he was taking a big flower pot. He was finna hit me in my head. But because she ran downstairs,
he stopped.
But he was coming after her. So because he was coming after her, made me grab him. And I said, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to do? And make a long story short, sweetheart, when I tell you, he beat me up so severely bad. And I'm telling my daughter, go back upstairs, because I did not want her to see that.
Yeah.
And I did not want her to be a part of that. And so she did, and she went back in the room, and he grabbed me by my hair, pulled me upstairs, and I said, I gotta go talk to my daughter. I gotta go talk to Tiffany. If I don't talk to Tiffany, she's gonna come to our door. She's gonna scratch, because anytime we get in an argument or
so she was kind of used.
She never saw him hit me.
Yeah.
Because I was able to shelter that.
Yeah.
But she would hear commotion in the room, and when she heard commotion, she would come at my door and just, Mommy.
How old was she?
She was at this time 9 years old.
Okay.
She was 9 years old. And so, not 10, she was 10. I said, let me go to her room to calm her down, because if not, she's going to be in our bedroom and she's going to cry the whole time. And I used to bring him, he'd be irritated. Yeah. And he said, okay. So I go in the room, I said, Tiffany, remember that phone? If you hear Mama scream, call 911. He comes in, come on out, because I guess I stayed there too long. Yeah. He pulled me out of there, and when he pulled me out, I completely forgot what I told my daughter. Right. He pulled me in the room, and I told him, can I go take a bath? And I went real quick, took a bath, because I needed to pray. I didn't know what was going to happen. Right. I said, God, I don't know. I just kept saying, Lord, protect my kids, protect my kids, protect my kids. And he came in the bathroom, pulled me out. He beat me up again, and he had this closet that I never went into. Yeah. Back and forth, he kept going back and forth, talking to me, just looking at the closet, talking to me, looking at the closet, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. Yeah. He went in the closet, got a Tech 9, pulled it out, wrapped it around with a white towel, put a silencer on it, and he came to put it in my face. And we put it in my face the first time. I said, stop, don't do this. And he said, I'm not gonna let nobody have you. And then he put it to my temple again. Yeah. And he pulled the trigger. The gun jammed.
Okay, so at that moment, because that's terrifying.
Yeah, very terrifying.
At that moment, what was you thinking when you heard the gun click?
All I thought about is my kids. Yeah. My kids is going to be just like me. They're going to not have their mom.
So you wasn't thinking about yourself?
I wasn't thinking about myself. Wow. I was thinking about my kids. Yeah. Well, when I realized that I was still there, I did. And he was like so in panicky mode. Yeah. Till he was trying to reload the gun again. But by that time, the police was there. And he was like, who called the police? And I'm like, I've been here the whole time. Right. What I did not know, he said, I know you didn't. I know you didn't. Because I cut the line.
Excuse me?
He cut the lines.
Excuse me?
But he cut the lines that he knew of.
Right.
He didn't cut the lines.
Come on, Jesus.
So God had already paved the way.
Yes.
And before you know it, I promise you, and I can remember, I told my daughter, if you hear me scream. Yes. Did you? I never screamed.
Well, how she
said she heard me from the inside.
Okay.
I was able to talk to her weeks later. It was just too much. You don't remember everything. Right. And I said, Tiffany, I never screamed. She said, Mom, I heard you on the inside. She called 911 and called her auntie, and they came, and the police came. By the time he was coming down the stairs, the police was already in the house. Because not only my daughter called the police, she opened the door for them to come in. And so I'm coming out there, butt nigga, he gotta kill me. Everything shaking and everything. It's funny now, but it wasn't funny that night. And that was the last time I was with him. Yes. But that was my way out. I moved into homeless. I unfortunately, a couple months later, thinking that he was going to take care of the stuff and take care of all the things of the house went in foreclosure and all that stuff, and it was just so much stuff going on, and so it landed me homeless.
I love that you said something about him. You said, I don't want him to go to prison, I just want him to leave me alone.
Yes. So keep in mind, is during that time he was the person that was working, and he was the one who had the money, and he was taking care of the bills. Well, when we went through that situation, we went to trial and all that, and so he told me not to testify against him, because if he go to jail,
you won't have a place to stay.
I wouldn't have a place to live. So I would try to dodge the subpoena, because I dropped the charges. I dropped the charges thinking, if he goes to prison, where am I going to go? Right. Because he said, I will leave you alone. Right. You just stay at the house. But in the agreement is, I don't testify against him. Right. So that didn't happen. I got subpoena, and the state attorney office, the lady who talked to me, she convinced me this was the right thing to do. Yeah. And she said, you know how many women that go through this. And when they go through it, the man depend, or the woman depend on the victim to not speak up. Right. And unfortunately, when you don't speak up, it creates another victim after you. Yeah. And so that convinced me. That convinced me to speak up, and I did. I spoke up. I went to court. Did not realize that he had a whole plan.
What do you mean a whole plan?
He had testimonies from people, talk about my character, saying I was the issue, I was the problem.
But you beat me.
Yeah. But keep in mind is he pled guilty for the domestic violence, but he did not want to plead guilty for the gun, for almost killing me, because you was a felon, and which I did not know. So you don't want to go to prison for that. So because you don't want to go to prison, you create this whole scenario story and had people to testify. But every witness walked away.
Come on.
When it was time to testify. I didn't know who these people was, but God had saw fit. So God allowed me to go through that, survived it. Yes. Moved in the homeless shelter. Thought I was there. I thought I was going to be there for this 6 months. So I'm getting myself together. I left a 5-bedroom home, 6 cars. Got me a hoopty. Yes, I had a hoopty because I didn't want none of the cars that he purchased. Right. I said I'm going to do it God's way this time. And I moved in the homeless shelter.
What was the name of the homeless shelter?
It was at the start. It was YWCA. Yeah. Then while I was living there, it changed to Community Connections. Okay. And so while I was at the YWCA, it's really when I ran into my purpose.
I love that. I love to hear, because so many of us, we think that what we're going through doesn't make sense, and Lord, why I'm going through this. But every time I hear one of you guys' testimony, you run smack dab in the middle of your purpose.
Yeah, I ran into my purpose, and I did not know I was going to run my purpose, because I just was thinking about, I want to get a place for my kids. Yes. When they explained me what the Community Connection, YWC was, I said, okay, this is an opportunity for me to get my life together. I'm not getting no involvement with no other person. I'm going to do it God's way this time. I'm going to try my best to do it God's way this time. And I did. I didn't do everything perfectly, but I would get into the homeless shelter not knowing what I was going to run into. Not knowing I was going to tap into who I was, not knowing none of that. I'm just thinking about my kids now. Now keep in mind is the way I dress now, I dress like that then. And so a lot of people did not know I was a resident. They thought I worked there. I said, no, I'm a resident. Well, being there for a minute, I started realizing that the women there was getting treated wrong. And they wouldn't stand up for themselves. And something came in me, and I started speaking. Pause.
You're the same woman.
Yes, same woman
that stuttered.
Yeah.
You the same.
And was still stuttering then.
Oh Jesus.
Yes.
God's gonna use you anyway.
Use me anyway.
Yes.
I don't know. At that point in my life, I started seeing myself in these ladies. Nobody stood up for me. Nobody talked for me. And if they did protect me, they protect me for their own motives. But I had no motives, but only want the best for you. And so I ended up building a relationship with these ladies. They started calling me Mother Teresa. Funny. But I didn't see that. All I just was an ear. And I remember times I would be in the kitchen, because we had to share the kitchen and cook and stuff. And one lady would ask me a question, and I'll be cooking while I'm asking the question. I look over and now it's 30, 40 women. They're listening to me. I'm like, what in the world?
I was going to say, did you know at that moment what God was doing?
No.
You
still didn't. I didn't know until like years later. I still didn't know. But I also did not know I was creating a conflict. I was creating a weapon. I was creating enemies.
You were shaking up the atmosphere.
Shaking up stuff, and I didn't know it. I'm thinking like, what's the problem? I'm starting getting write-ups. I'm like, write-ups for inviting people to church, and you know, because I started a dance ministry.
How you getting write-up for bringing people to church to the Lord? Where they do that at?
I don't know. I started getting with the staff. I started creating conflict.
Now you wasn't part of the staff.
No, I wasn't part of the staff. I was creating conflict because now looking back at it, I was building women, and they was looking to me
instead of them.
And them got upset. But I was not aware of it. But there was 2 ladies that worked there that loved me, and they said these women was fighting every day, seemed like, until you got here. And you change the atmosphere on the floor.
Yes.
And it's creating a lot of problem in the office. So they will warn me about stuff, that write-ups, things that's going to happen. And I'm like, what? And at this place, you have to keep a job. You have to keep a job. If you lose a job, if you walk off of a job or whatever, you have 30 days to get a job.
Yeah.
And so I was working for the Census Bureau at the time, and the job ended. And so I'm thinking I'm going to go get a hotel job or a McDonald's job, because I didn't have any education. The last grade I completed was the 7th grade. I didn't learn how to read till I was 21. I don't have a high school diploma. I don't have a GED. So I didn't have none of that stuff.
All these things stack up against you. Yes.
So I went to jobs that was easy.
Yes.
And I was still getting turned down.
Yes.
And so I'm crying. I have 15 more days now to turn in employment verification, and I didn't get a job. So an employee found a job and said, hey, I think I found you something that you can apply for. And when I read the
qualifications,
I don't meet those qualifications. But she was determined that I did.
Yes.
And she said, I will help you with your resume, blah, 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 this, that, and another. So she sent me to downtown for the interviews.
Yeah.
116 people showed up for the interview. They was only selecting 7 people. And before you know it, it took like 2-3 days for you go through the interview process. And they kept saying, if you get chosen to the next level, you'll keep going until we get our 7 people. So it would get down to 72, down to 48, 24.
Now listen, Linda.
Down to Linda. And I kept getting passed, baby.
What would you think? Like the first time, like, you know what, I'm about to see me.
Well, I thought she had some kind of connection. And she was making that happen. Well, she didn't.
Come on, Lord.
And I didn't learn that later, but I'm like, okay, she must have been talking to somebody.
Right, because they don't know.
Way.
Right, that y'all passing me, Jesus.
Maybe I don't qualify.
But nothing. Nan degree.
See, man said I didn't qualify for God. But anyway, that's a whole nother story back. And make a long story short, got down to 14 people, and they said, you have, after the 14, we're going to choose our 7. I got the phone call. I was part of the 7.
Come on, Jesus.
And did not know what the job was.
Hold on, wait a minute.
I did not.
Wait a minute. You applying for something?
I did not quite, because I didn't know how to read good.
Okay.
I based everything on what she said to do.
Right.
And she sent me in there, and I was able to turn in my employment and verification. And eventually, believe it or not,
awesome.
It went crazy. It's so much stuff happened between that. But after a couple of years, I became the boss. I became their supervisor.
The same people.
The same people.
Hello.
Trying to throw me out, light me up. I became their supervisor. But when I became the supervisor, I, of course, flesh wanted to say, 99. But God wouldn't let me do that.
Yes.
He wouldn't let me do that. And I am so grateful. 20-some years ago, he gave me a platform. He gave me an opportunity. And I found out who I was. And so the magazines, the women empowerment, the entrepreneurship, the business strategies, the business coach, all came from that journey. And I did not realize he was building me for now. And so I remember my first speaking engagement when I was in San Diego.
Still stuttering?
Still stuttering. Did not know. I'm like, oh my God. But when I got this job, they were sending me San Diego, New York, Mexico, all these different places to learn, to train, and to become more equipped in my role. And this particular job, I'm still in training. We're in San Diego, and in the training, the facilitator got sick. And it's about 300-400 of us there, all over the world. It wasn't just from Jacksonville. It wasn't just the state of Florida. It was people all over that did what I do, community development. And so, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning this process, but I'm like loving what I'm learning. I'm like,
this is me, Jesus.
And so the facilitator got sick, and when she got sick, they didn't have a facilitator. Where people was pointing to me, like, hey, she can do it. She can do it. And I'm not knowing that.
They're pointing at you.
They're pointing at me.
And so
you just trying to. I'm just trying to figure out what we gonna do. We got another person. What we gonna do?
You were the other person.
I was the person. So the lady came to me. She said, "Do you mind facilitating?" For some reason, they think you can do it.
Who, me?
And I was like, "No." no. I said, stop saying that. No. And I allowed them people to push me up to that podium. But when I got to the podium, I looked out to the people and said, I was born for this.
I love it.
And my career started. Before I knew it, my career started in community development in so many places. I've been hired. I done worked with so many nonprofits, helped so many nonprofits, organizations get
so
funding.
many different people.
So many people, wonderful people. I'm so grateful for my journey. And now I take my lessons that I've learned and I pass them down to other people.
Pastor Teresa.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I love it because it brings me hope, because a lot of us go through things that we like, okay, Lord, you told me I was somebody, but I'm not seeing it right now. You told me I was made for greatness, but I don't feel great right now. But just to know that you pushed through it, you allow the Lord to push you through it, and look at you now. You right where you were supposed to be this whole entire time.
Well, look at Joseph.
Yes.
God showed Joseph a dream.
Yes.
But he did not show Joseph how he's going to get there.
Yes.
And many of us are Joseph.
Right.
He showed us a glimpse.
Yes.
He give us in parts.
Yes.
He don't tell us everything. Because if he tell you everything,
I'm not going to do it.
You're not doing it. If I tell you that you're going to go through a divorce, you ain't going to do this. If I tell you you're going to be raped 12 times by male or female, you ain't going to do this. If I tell you you're going to be left for dead, you ain't going to do this.
Right.
If I tell you you're going to get busted in your head and left to die, you is not going to do this. If I tell you you're going to be prosecuted, lied on, cheated, and put in prison, you is not going to do it. If I tell you that you're going to be put in a pit, you is not going to do it. So I have to shelter you from that. I can't give you that information. I have to close. I got to let you walk in this blind. Because if I don't, you abandon the assignment. Because on the other side of your story is people. On the other side of that is your healing. And so now, and we're still walking through some stuff. We're still walking through the marvelous testimonies that God is doing. And I'm just so grateful. And I know that somebody out there that you may be going through the most hardest time of your life and you do not see your way out. I would just like to commission you. I would just like you to consider that God is in the mix, and if you just follow his path, he will carry you through. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is healing on the other side of your pain. And every pain and every tear that you ever cried will not go wasted. It won't go wasted. It won't.
Pastor Teresa, thank you so very, very much. I ain't gonna get emotional. But I just thank you for being able to share your testimony, being able to share your testimony to even my audience, because it speaks about hope. It speaks about continuing even when it doesn't seem like you need to. You went through so much, but to look at you now, it's like, okay, I might not start off smiling this morning, but when I came in contact with Pastor Teresa Burton, I'm smiling. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
This is amazing. This is very amazing.
Thank you. Guys, I hope you learned a lot. I hope you was inspired just as I was. I'm so grateful just to be in her presence right now. Remember to love, pray, and be that beacon of light for the world to see. Until next time, I love you.
God bless you.